Hello everyone, this is Brad Wood. Today I want to talk to you about server profiles. So the idea behind server profiles is the ability to lock down your server and make everything as secure as possible, but instead of having to always worry about all the little individual settings you need to get just right, instead of having a big easy button you can push that says, make me secure. A lot of people will just deploy CommandBox or any server for that matter using the default settings, so CommandBox does try to be as secure by default when possible. So let's talk about our server profiles. There's three profiles available out of the box. There's production, which is locked down, obviously for production hosting. There's development, which locks a couple things down, but it's still pretty lax security. It's designed for local development. And then there is a profile called None, which is basically for backwards compatibility. It essentially doesn't really apply any of the server rules, just kind of behaves like CommandBox used to behave back before profiles existed. So your profile can be set in your server.json, which looks like this. It can also be provided to the server start command, which ultimately just sets it to server.json. You can also set it via environment variable. The variable name convention would be box_server_profile. Okay, so if you haven't explicitly set a profile for CommandBox to use, this is how it decides what to use. If there's an environment variable called environment, it will use that to set the default profile name. And we use that because that's the same convention ColdBox and MVC applications use. So if you're using ColdBox with CommandBox, you probably already have an environment variable called environment, and it'll just pick it up and use it. Development, production, ready to go. Otherwise, if the site is bound on localhost, which is defined as any IP address starting with 127 dot anything, then we will default the profile to development. All right. In all of the cases, the profile will be production. So unless you tell us that you're not in production, or it looks for some reason that we can tell you're not in production, we're going to assume you're in production. And that's just to be as secure as possible out of the box. So what exactly do these profiles toggle on and off? Let's discuss them. The production profile will turn directory listing off, so you cannot list the contents of directories. The production profile will block the ColdFusion administrator for all external traffic. So if the request is not coming from localhost, it will be blocked. Production profile will also block sensitive paths. We'll talk about what those are in a second. And it will also block flash remoting, which we'll talk about, but you can probably pretty much guess what all that includes. So that's what production does out of the box. The development profile allows directory listing. So if you hit a directory that does not have an index.cfm, you'll be able to see all the files in the directory. It does not block the ColdFusion administrator at all. Everything's wide open. The development profile still does block sensitive paths and flash remoting, because really neither of these things should probably ever be enabled. So we just leave them off. And the None profile, directory listing is still off just because that's the default way that CommandBox is. Directory listing is pretty much only going to be on unless you want it on, such as the development profile. But the None profile doesn't do anything to the ColdFusion administrator, doesn't block any sensitive paths, any kind of flash remoting. And so under the documentation, under server rules, there's a baked in rules page. And this breaks down these three main rules and what they do. So the block CFadmin rule has three values that can be set to: true, false, or external. So true just blocks all access to the administrators, right? Doesn't matter where it's coming from. False blocks nothing. And external says, well, is it coming from localhost? If so, allow it. If not, block it. Block sensitive paths has a handful of things that it kind of combines together into one big convenient rule for you. First of all, it will block the HTTP methods track and trace. These are generally regarded as not being very secure. They'll echo back different information about the HTTP session that you might not want to be visible. It also blocks static files such as box.json, server.json, web.config, URL rewrite.xml, package.json, package lock, gulpfile.js. All these files will be blocked. And you'll notice that if a malicious user tries to hit them, we simply send back a 404. When doing security, I like to pretend the thing someone's looking for doesn't even exist, right? So Even if there is a box.json, if a hacker comes looking for it, CommandBox is going to be like, what? Box.json? I don't know. Never heard of that thing, right? 404. Doesn't exist. Not here. Right. Move along. Any file or folder beginning with a period will also be blocked automatically. We also have some servlet mappings in Adobe ColdFusion, JS Debug Servlet, Security Analyzer. I don't even know what this guy is here. WSRP Producer. Either way, blocked. And then we have some Java Web Service Access files, .jws files. So those are also blocked. So when you turn on block sensitive paths, all this stuff gets blocked. And then, but wait, there's more. If you're in production profile, there's even more that we block. So RDS, which is used by ColdFusion Builder, and a few other ColdFusion paths are going to be blocked. And we also block access to any test box runners if you were in production profile. Okay, so those are all the sensitive paths that we block. Flash remoting is a little bit shorter list. Basically, the Flex2 gateway folder, Flex internal, Flash services gateway, CF form internal, CF form gateway. All of those paths get blocked, as well as any MXML or CF Swift files are also blocked. So that's what block Flash remoting does. So let's take a quick look at a test here to kind of just show you what these guys do. Here I have just a basic server. I have no index.cfm. That way we can see when our directory listing works. I have an env file. It's actually empty because we're not going to be able to access it. Oops, I spelled it wrong. There's an env file. There's nothing in it. I also have another file called .secret.txt, right? That has some super secrets inside. And we have our server.json. So I am going to set my, server set profile equal to none. And then I'm going to turn on directory browsing just because that's off by default for none. So here's the contents of my server.json. Oops. And that reveals the fact that I have incorrectly spelled the word none. There we go. So now I'm going to start up my server and I'm going to use the verbose flag because there's a little bit of handy output in the server start command that tells us about our server start. So setting our server profile to none, that reminds us what the profile is set to. This always shows up. And when you're doing a verbose or debug start, it tells us why we got that profile. So a profile was set from the profile property of the server.json, right? We know why we did it. And there's our browser. Okay, so ColdFusion Administrator is not being blocked. Sensitive paths are not being blocked. Flash remoting not being blocked. Directory browsing is enabled. All right, so it reminds us all these things that are currently happening. So our servers come up and we can see that we are getting directory browsing. We're able to see all the files in the directory. So this would happen in development profile or if you've explicitly turned it on. We can view the contents of our server.json file. Not great. There could be sensitive things in here. There could be maybe passwords, JVM arguments. So we don't really like that happening. We're not able to hit our .env file, but not for the reason you think. It's not because it starts with a period. It's actually because CommandBox has an allowed whitelist of static files that you're allowed to view directly. And a file starting with just a dot looks like it's just an env extension. And there is no valid env extension. So CommandBox is actually blocking our env file because of this setting here, not because of the period. And that's why I created this other file here, .secret.txt. CommandBox will happily serve up this text file, whose extension it recognizes, despite the fact that it starts with a period. So this is CommandBox in the please come hack me mode. So let's go ahead and turn a couple of these things off now. So I'm going to clear my directory browsing. Don't want that to be enabled. And I'm going to set our block CF administrator even more strictly than normal. So server set web.cf, block CF admin equal to true. So we're going to block that across the board. And then I'm going to start, and I'm just going to set my profile here as I start, set our profile to production. That's going to save in my server.json. And I'm going to use that verbose flag. Let's actually stop the server first so that I can restart it. Okay. So we look at our verbose output. It's looking a lot more green and a lot less angry. It tells us the profile was set from the profile argument of the server start command. So it tells us why it used it. Our profile is now production. Our cold future administrators are blocked. Our sensitive paths are blocked. Our flash remoting is blocked. Our directory browsing is disabled. So when our server comes up, instead of seeing a directory listing of the files, we just get forbidden because there's no index.cfm, so it doesn't know what else to show us, right? So a hacker can't see what's in those empty folders. We still cannot view our .env file for multiple reasons now, because it's an unknown extension and because it's starting with a period. And if I try to hit my .secret.txt file, that's also being blocked, right? We got the 404, look in our debugging, we can see the actual status code is 404. Our server is just shrugging, shrug emoji, pretending it's never heard of such a file, doesn't know what the hackers are talking about. And our server.json, also all these custom JSON files, we're pretending we've never heard of them. And if I try to access my Cold Fusion Administrator, I didn't open this earlier, trust me, it would have worked. But now that I'm in production profile and I've actually set my block cfadmin to just be straight up across the board blocked, even my Lucy administrator is also not found. And of course, same thing for Adobe Cold Fusion administrators, we block all of those paths. So now we have CommandBox in the Iron Dome mode. Everything is blocked that we can possibly think of. And this is the most secure way that you can deploy this. Again, keep in mind, if you deploy IIS or Apache or Nginx in front of CommandBox, it may happily serve up files such as server.json because it doesn't know better. So you're in the most secure mode you can be in when you're hitting CommandBox directly and you've let CommandBox do the lockdown. As soon as you add another web server in front, you have to keep in mind that web server may not have CommandBox's ideals, and you may need to re-implement some of that lockdown at that web server in front because it has direct access to the web root. So a lot of combinations, a lot of flexibility, but that's what the profiles do out of the box. Those are the rules that they affect, and you can mix and match any of these settings. So even if you're in production profile, but maybe you want the Cold Fusion administrators open, right? You can still layer these settings on top, and you can get a nice combination that customizes to what your needs are. Okay, have fun profiling, and I'll see you guys next time.